and now to bring considerable analytical insight and hindsight and foresight into the issues we've covered on the program today. I'm joined now in the studio by the public policy analyst Chibuzo Okereke. Chibuzo, thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening to you. And you were patiently listening to and watching Aisha Yusufu there, the woman that people have called, some people have called the people's activist. What did you make of the things she had to say, broadly speaking? Pick any bit of it.
Well, I think that she represented herself well. She has been out there raising her voice on key national issues, and excitedly she was able to identify with presidential candidates in the last election. And it's some of the things we have also put out that citizens, at a point, as you do advocacy and activism, you have to really realize that you will not be able to change so much from the outside except from the inside. But also, I agree with her, especially on the point that the political parties need to reform. And this is very key. But even at the Labour Party, you can also see the disarticulation in terms of leadership, arrangement, and what have you. On one hand, you have a group of people who say, we identify with an individual and not a party. And this is the problem, because even if that individual emerges and goes into office, you're still going to have problem trying to balance interests between those people in the movement and those in the political parties. Who is going to be more prominent in running the government, because the individual will not be able. And also the party machinery, if it's properly designed, is able to checkmate that individual. But if we focus on individual, it becomes a problem in how we govern. For instance, all the parties have structure at the world level, local government, state, and federal. And you discover that after elections, this world leadership of the parties don't even meet. So if they don't meet, hold world meetings, how are you able to articulate the problems of the people related to the state assembly member, House of Reps, Senate, and even the people at the executive camp? So for me also, the point she raised about funding for elections, in terms of the amount we buy forms. I think that if you look at the philosophy of democracy for legitimacy, popular participation, and inclusion, and the political parties do not own the positions they are fielding people to vie for. Therefore, they cannot peg the price for which people should.
People that kind of money.
The qualification for contesting for party primaries should be your financial standing within the party in terms of dues payment and not the charge for a form. So I think that the reform we are doing now should target making sure that there is zero payment for forms, because this is not party chairmanship. You are talking about national election. So the party cannot take over the country.
Right, but isn't that a way of whittling out people?
Which is discriminatory.
No, I understand that, but I mean, in the context of Nigeria, you're going to have people, you're going to have people deluge the party with the desire to become candidates, and that's going to create another logistical nightmare.
Absolutely. So for me, it's very wrong, and the practice is even becoming more problematic, because as the day go by, there is no form of regulation as to at what price or rate should a party nomination or expression of interest go for. And that is a problem. That on its own is against the natural course of democracy that calls for inclusion and popular participation.
So your argument is that rather than use the cost of the forms, which is astronomical by any standards, rather than using that as a way of whittling people out, that you can use perhaps a system of checks and balances on a person, checks on individuals.
Absolutely.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And use that rather than the money that you charge.
Absolutely, because they don't own the position they are running for. It's for the country. It's not for the party. It's just by extant laws provision that they are required to field people, for office. And that is, and if you watch it, the parties do not have membership. You have seen situations where parties conducted a primary election through the direct approach, and the candidate got 40 million and goes to the general election when the whole country is involved, and he got only 15. So where are the 40 million membership of the party? So the earlier we begin to build the party system, because the party system is the gateway for leadership recruitment. If we don't build it, we are missing it out. I tell you something, you can spend, no matter how an activist you are or how bright you are to contribute to the public space, you can spend 50, 100 years in this country, no party will approach you for recruitment. Unlike what we have in other climes, where they even go to university to identify people, recruit them, begin to groom them within the party system, and then eventually they get to public office, because leadership preparedness is key to governance delivery.
Yeah. I agree. And would you advocate independent candidacy? There's a constitutional review going on at the moment. Is that something that you would advocate? I mean, well, as a way of kind of getting around that party issue.
Well, I think there's nothing wrong with it, but definitely it will not work for executive positions. But for legislative positions, you know, that can work maybe at councillor, as House of Assembly member. In Ghana here, there is independent, candidates. And so if Ghana, that is just our neighbor, could have that, we can also have it, but organizing around an independent candidate will be difficult for executive election. But for legislative election, I think it further opens the door for more inclusion and popular participation in the political process. But, you know, I need to say this. You see, there's a way people understand opposition. The opposition must not be about attacking the government, right? And if we believe in the rule of law and democracy, we should also be careful, because God could just make our prayers to happen, and taking over power you want will happen. Other people will start saying the same thing you are saying. So we should have limit in terms of the issue of recognition of who is a president. Yeah, you know, it happened to the AP when they were in opposition. So organizing around rule of law and principles of democracy is key. So we know when the law has taken its course, even though you are not happy with it, you have to recognize it, because it's for the national good, which you are fighting for, and then you can as well continue to organize to ensure that you upturn that.
Well, many of those people say, well, let's win the election, and then we can worry about the rest of it, which is essentially what happened with the APC. But, I mean, she did not seem to believe that the opposition parties can work together to create a new political movement that can take on the APC in 2027. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Well, I think the opposition parties, they can do that. We have seen it before. I have told people in the National Assembly, for instance, when you had the current chief of staff as a minority leader, in fact, the way they organize, they meet before plenary, they ensure that items on the agenda, they consider it, they have a position on the floor. At a point, so much heat that the president could not even come to present budget. He had to send the Minister of Finance at a time. So opposition parties have a critical role to play. And the way democracy is organized in Nigeria, you need strong opposition voices to even keep the government on its toes, because it's for the good of the people. If the opposition are completely neutralized just for the purpose of retaining power and winning an election, it's not even good for those that are, you know, in power, because that will not serve the right purpose for a democratic system. So they can organize, right? But also in organizing, sacrifice has to be made. If you watch the current president now, he sacrificed a lot. We have heard the story about how he wanted to be vice president and they say, no, you can't be. They promised him the person he supported is going to do one tenure. When he got to 2019, they say, no, I have to do 8 years. The man remained, you know. So you have to be strategic. You have to, you know, you see, politicians, build on a lot of things. And I think that people, no matter if you like somebody or not, we have to study. If you want to take over power, it's good to study those who have succeeded in taking over power. And then you can deploy even an improved strategy to undo them.
That's very interesting. And one of the things she talked about was the fact that she's using online activism much more now than actually going out on the streets. I mean, the reason she gave was that she doesn't recognize that there is any government to go and protest against, which, you know, a lot of people would probably disagree with. But I'm wondering, from your point of view, are there things that you can achieve through online protests that you can't when you go out on the streets, and vice versa? I mean, is it more advisable in today, particularly in societies where you might end up having violent encounters with security forces?
So the online platform, as we have seen in 2023, is a real platform. It's beyond virtual. It actually helps to galvanize and rally, you know, people. So it's like another physical world. People really engage at the online platform for the, you know, they really engage factually.
They do.
And they believe,
particularly in Nigeria.
In Nigeria, yeah. So when we have seen organization of activities from online to physical, places. And I tell you something, it's one of the things I felt the Labour Party probably didn't recognize. At the time in 2023, they were organizing. You had people created WhatsApp group, they were on Facebook, on Twitter, holding people through that engagement, even without connecting with their presidential candidate, you know, were using their money to sponsor billboard in local villages and all that. But the moment the Labour Party presidential candidate adopted the system of creating campaign council and eliminated certain people, even some of the WhatsApp groups where, you know, people belong, they started changing the names, because they couldn't find themselves within the new structure that the candidate had now announced. So that is also another way of studying a strategy. So online is real, and I think that they have used it to achieve something. And campaigning online, I would disagree completely that the reason is because you don't recognize a president. Imagine if your candidate later wins the election and people say they don't recognize him, then we are breeding anarchy. So at a point, constitutionalism and rule of law has to be recognized as the basis for even the freedom of expression you're offering. So I think that what organizing online is key, because you can rally a lot of people and they can translate that into real factual results.
And on that sobering note, I did say that you have a lot of analytical insight and hindsight and foresight, and I'm sure the people can see that your interview here will bear me out. Thank you very much indeed. Chibuzo Okereke is a public policy analyst. That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.